This is really going to be a student-led event, so we have two facilitators. We have Takoya.
Hi, my name is Takoya Richardson. I am a journalism one facilitator, and I'm a writer staffer for Odyssey.
And Audrey Enghauser.
Hi, I'm Audrey. I'm a menu editor and a writer for Odyssey.
So this will be their show. I know you'll be a good audience, and please welcome our guests with a little hand praise.
We're going to start by having the panelists introduce themselves. You can start.
Sure. My name is Joseph Carter. I am a union and community organizer here. And I'm also the project coordinator for the Linnentown Project. My background is in physics, but I am a labor organizer. And this project grew out of us trying to organize workers at the University of Georgia. And we wanted to connect the low wage, the poverty here in Athens, the low wages, with the high employment, along with the housing problems and increasing gentrification. And so I came across Linnentown, but I came across it in a very surprising way. I found it on a 1918 fire insurance map. And I'm sure we all know where Russell, Brumby, and Creswell dorms are. That's 22 acres, and that's where Linnentown was, of about 50 black residents. And I'll say briefly what it was and then pass it on. It was a black community that was destroyed by urban renewal by the University of Georgia in the city of Athens. And my job as the project coordinator and the community organizer is to help the surviving residents seek redress and recognition for what happened. And so I'm going to pass that on to the residents to talk about.
Okay, my name is Hattie Whitehead, and I lived in Linnentown. I'm first descendant. I want you all to know that the urban renewal in the University of Georgia targeted our community. It was only 3 streets. 2 was unpaved, and 1 was paved. And we had no street lights in the community. But because of the location, which was right down the street off of Baxter, the University of Georgia wanted this land for dorms. So we were targeted. Our land was basically taken from us. They gave anywhere from $1,600 to $4,000 in 1961, 62, 63 for the land. The homeowners had no say-so on how much money they would get. There were no bargaining. They gave you a check. The community was in an uproar. There were a lot of crying because it took years for them to get enough money to buy the property. Years, because you only made $7, $8 a week. So it took years to do that. You couldn't go to the bank and apply for a loan. You had to get money from other people or for a loan company. This was before integration. So I just want you all to know what can happen by law, by your city council, once they decide that they want to take the property based on, they say, improvement of the city of Athens. I was a child when this happened. I was also involved in civil rights. So I was involved in civil rights, and I was going home and listening to our parents. I had a voice, though, if I was not a voting age, but I had a voice. And I used my voice, with my parents' permission, used my voice to get involved in civil rights. Once I got of age, then I started voting. So I had a voice, and then I had a vote. This could happen to anyone. My father was uneducated. He went to the 3rd grade. And when my father wanted us to read something to him, he expected us to know what that was that we was trying to explain to him. We couldn't say, I don't know, to our father. We had to say, let me read this and get back with you. It wasn't no, I don't, what you mean you don't understand? You going to that school over there. So we had to know for our parents so we could interpret what was going on in the community. But they had nobody to turn to. They couldn't turn to the politicians. They couldn't turn to anyone because the university and the politicians were together in taking our land. So now we're seeking redress. We got the data that Joey Carter was able to give us. So now we're going to the city council, we're going to the mayor and say, this was wrong, you gotta make it right.
My name is Bobby Crook, and I too am a Linnentown resident. And I was 11 years old when I came home one day after school, and the whole neighborhood was in like a uproar. People were crying, and I was wondering what was everybody so upset about. And everybody in the neighborhood was saying, we gotta move. The University of Georgia taking our house. They taking our neighborhood. And I was like, they taking out, I couldn't understand somebody taking our house because that was all I knew was Linnentown. I remember Hattie's house. I remember Geneva's them house. I used to go all up and down Peabody Street, Finley Street, Lennon Row, playing with my neighbors. And what I found to be true was that where were we going? Where were we going? We had to, it was so in a hurry. You know, we want you to be gone quick. And my parents were like, well, we're gonna wait and decide on where we're gonna move to. So we decided that we would move on Church Street. But come to find out, moving was very difficult. And especially for us, the Crook family, we had been at 167 Peabody Street since 1938, and this was like in 1965 and 66 when all this happened. So after being in one place for so long, you just take for granted that it's always gonna be yours as long as you pay your taxes. So I'm just wanna inform you all to, now that we are in the information age, you get information real quick now, stay involved in things. Don't let people just take advantage of you like our parents did. But that was because they had very little education. They depended on us for everything as far as the education. That's why they said that's why we sending you to school. They couldn't read, but they had very good common sense. And they knew how to raise a family and provide for a family, whether it was 8 children or 1. They knew how to raise a family, which now we find people that out here homeless and families broken up. But in those days, everybody, especially a family of large, they depended on each other to pull this thing through. Now, Linnentown is something that the people, after 40 or 50 years, I may see Geneva in a grocery store. And the first thing will come to our mind is Linnentown. If I seen Hattie anywhere, first thing come to our mind is Linnentown. Because that was something embedded in us, and our parents owned this. They didn't rent this, they owned this. Now, they telling you gotta move, and then the suggestion that they made was you move to public housing. Now, you moving from a house that you own to public housing. That is a step below, not a step above when people are buying your property. But they wanna buy your property at way less than fair value. And as time went on, we found out that through the information, through Joey and the information that we received, or how our parents were treated. And it is disgraceful if you read the information that we have, that the way our parents were treated just because of our color. And what we find about color is we are all people. I don't care what color you are. We are all people. And in the end, we all gonna die. It's not like because you white, you're gonna live more than somebody black. You know, in the end, it's all gonna be the same thing. So I pass it on to Geneva.
Hello, my name is Geneva Johnson Everhart, 123 Linden Road, Linnentown. My daddy's name was David Johnson Sr. My mom was named Carrie Lou Foss Johnson. They bought a house in Linnentown in 1948. We moved over there, I was 3 years old, 3. Daddy and mama, they worked for the University of Georgia, first at Baldwin, where they found all the slave graves at. They were working over them graves and didn't know it. Listen to me, children. Then they sent them away from over there, sending my daddy to the Fine Arts Building, send mama to Snelling Hall. Daddy made more than mama because, you know, they thought men's like they think now are greater. Daddy made $8 a week. Mama made less, $7 a week. Leaving 8 children, listen children, me leaving 8 children at home. It was 8 of us. Daddy bought that house. And then we lived in it. We were raised in it. But let me tell you something. We was also, it was fixed so we had rules. We had different rules from the white people. When the people want to go and look at a game, by our house being so close to Sanford Stadium, they was parked in front of our houses. Their cars and things blocked our driveway. We didn't have, we couldn't send that. You know, the Atlanta Journal asked me, said, was there slavery? I quickly said no, but then I got and I thought about it. Yes, we were about 5 yards from being in it. We did what they say do. We didn't know it. We went where they say went, what school, the books we had to cover our books with paper bags. Y'all didn't have to, white people didn't have to do that. We lived in Linnentown. One day in the 60s, after we were being raised, I had to stand out there, just think about it, and watch those cars, because if anything happened to those cars, my mom and daddy would be blamed for it. They had to pay. They didn't have any money. We was poor church mice, but we didn't know it, because we had one another. We stood for right for one another. It can happen. I'm not trying to divide nobody, but black people, let me tell you, we love one another then. We stood for one another, and it's still here today. Bobby do what I said do right now, because we took care of him.
That's right.
This is not a joke, and this is not a plaything. Those people called my dad a Snowball, gave him a nickname. Back then, they gave him them kind of names. Daddy thought that they loved him. We thought that the white people were right, because that's the way they put it over there in Linnentown. Right in Linnentown, you go down the street and then you get on Peabody, they destroyed everything. They told my daddy and Mr. Dave Brown, her uncle, we gonna have a meeting. And when they had a meeting, it was in the 60s. 61. I remember it like it was today. When daddy came back, mama said, what did they say? He said, they said, we got to move. But he said, he told them, I don't want to move. I'm fixing up my house, you know, and bringing up the park. They told him this right here, listen to me. Snowball, you don't have a choice. For an acre of land, they gave him $2,000. Listen, $851. And then because they said all the houses was slum houses. But that was a lie. Hattie Daddy had just built a house up there on Peabody. That was a lie. Listen, Daddy went on Peabody and found the house because they wouldn't let him move our house. It was too big, too bulky. We owned that house. Daddy owned that land. Him and Mama worked hard. Can you imagine? Can you imagine making $8 and $7 a week? Think about it. Put yourself in their place. Put yourself in the place of this little girl got to stand and watch those cars so nothing won't happen to him, so your mama had to be blamed for it. Think about it. This little black girl. And then just imagine it was a little white girl. Boy, I was a little white girl. It wouldn't happen. Let me tell you something. We can't be divided no more. We gonna all have to come together, black, white, purple, polka dot. I do not care, green. We got to come together. But Dad had to move. He went and got a house on Peabody, young lady. He went and got a house on Peabody, right above where her dad's house was. He had just built a house, he had. And then he found a Jim Walter home, and he moved it. He had it moved from Peabody all the way to 1550 East Broad Street. Told a lie, said it was a slum house, but they were lying. Said all the houses were slum. They were lying. They wanted us gone. And right to the day, that house is still standing, but my daddy had moved. Do you know how hard that was back then? I'm living in that house right now. The mayor had came over there to visit me, to see Spencer Fry. Had and Bobby come when they get ready because they family. And that same house that they said was a slum, that same house that they made people move, you know what they did? They started burning houses. That was a scare tactic. They took the sheet off the head and put a suit on. Let me tell you something else. When they burned it enough, they turn around and then start bulldozing, slamming bulldozers inside your house. How would you put yourself in a place? Y'all come on together. We got to do this, all of you. We can't have no division no more. It was wrong. They're going to have to pay it, and we don't want no long-term out. They're going to have to pay for what they done. The city of Athens and the University of Georgia. I love the University of Georgia. I love the city of Athens. That's why I'm still here. I called my daddy in 1964. I had got married, went to Atlanta, had a little baby. I told Dad, I said, come and get me. You know, think the house going to be the same. I came back, everything was dead. I walked the town with this little 3-month-old baby. I asked Daddy, what's going on? He said, we got to go. House was leaking by then. If things weren't being fixed, the yard wasn't being cleaned. I said, what's going on? He said, baby, we got to leave here. I said, but this is your house. These white folks told us we got to go. And they was not playing. Like I said, they took the hood off the head and put it on the heart. Right then in the 60s. Don't let that happen to you, ladies and gentlemen. Don't let it happen to you. In no way. Come on now, we can do this. We're going to stand together, and we're going to get our resolution for this. And it's not going to be 3 and 4 years from now, mayor, city of Athens, commissioners. It's going to be soon and very soon, because they didn't give us no choice. Right away, they said. So we said the same thing. We came to Roots. We want it right away, revolution right away. We're going to get what Daddy worked for. How you going to pay somebody that kind of money for an acre of land? Come on now. If they did it to you, what will you do? Y'all thinking. Nobody didn't do that way back then. Yes, they did. They did it. I don't see how y'all stood that. You stood it because it was that time you was in place. You was in your place. But now, y'all have an opportunity to do better. Do better whether you're black or white, green or polka dot or purple. Do better. My name is Geneva Johnson Everhart, and I love y'all and thank you very much.
I know like y'all kind of already touched on this, on what Linnentown was, but like what is the Linnentown Project?
So the Linnentown Project began, like I said, with the union organizing back in late 2018. And it is now, it has 2 goals: to celebrate the history and the heritage of Linnentown, and to educate and to lobby city decision makers and stakeholders about the violence that came out of urban renewal. The project, we've written legislation called the Linnentown Resolution for recognition and redress. it demands reparations. So the project is now about lobbying our current mayor and commission to pass this resolution to give the residents of Linnentown both monetary recompensation for what not only they lost, but what the city and the university gained.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what we talk about in terms of wealth. It's one thing to have a job. It's one thing to have a job at good pay. It's a whole different thing to have a job at good pay when you have wealth, when you have property, when you own the dirt that you live on. And they owned the dirt that they lived on. And that was taken away at pennies on the dollar because of a mayor and a city council and a very powerful university, and also U.S. senators.
Yep.
They had no power. And to this day, after 60 years, they're just now gaining some kind of power back. We've gone to the University of Georgia to ask them to sit down with the residents. And they told us no. They said that they would that we would trap them in the way that they felt trapped with Baldwin Hall. So we went to Mayor and Commission, and we worked with Mariah Parker on this resolution. And this resolution is available online if you go to redress for Linnentown.com. And you can read the whole thing. So the project is about recognition and redress. What does reparations look like? It's not just monetary compensation. That's a big part of it. But it's also about the city of Athens and the University of Georgia giving up a substantial amount of power and giving it back to communities, to Linnentown, but not just to Linnentown, to all the communities in poverty who have no power. So that's what this is really about. Political power is everything. And the only ways that you have political power is if you own the land that you live on, and you have wealth, and you have a good job, a good paying job. When you don't have any of those, you have no political power. So the project is, so when we talk about what reparations are, it's about sharing power. And we're having to do some teaching to Mayor and Commission about what sharing power is like. Some of them aren't very happy about wanting to share power. So the project is about political lobbying for the residents of Linnentown to set an example of how to make redress for harms that were inflicted on black communities by institutions of power occupied by people who have ties all the way back to the Klan. And these are the realities that we're trying to educate. So that's what the project is about.
And let me put one more thing out there. I want y'all to understand this, that off of Baxter Street, where Linnentown was and still is, all the black families were moved. But you can go there today, right now as I speak. All the white families' houses that were there then, they are there now. Amen. They didn't move any of the white people's houses. They didn't touch them. We lived on Peabody Street. Peabody Street, and you have Church Street, and then you have Peabody again. You go up Peabody Street, and the same houses that were there then, they are there now. And as I was growing up, I would take my friends, we go riding, I would go over there and show them. I said, man, this was all black. This was Linnentown here, man. And I didn't know that I was educating them. A lot of them, that my age, I'm 65, they didn't even know Linnentown was there. But I guess that's what they wanted. They didn't want Linnentown to be known as a black neighborhood. And as we see around Athens, black neighborhoods are slowly disappearing. Now, after a while, when there's no more black neighborhoods to get, guess what's next? So I want to make sure y'all understand that.
I just want to say that this, you know, this should come across, we don't want to come across that we're angry, okay? I don't want it to come across that way because I love the city of Athens.
Mm-hmm.
And my daughter went to University of Georgia, and I had a son-in-law that played football there. So this is a learning process for everybody, and it's a learning process for you all, because you all may have to help your family. Mm-hmm. You are in school. You don't know what's going to happen when there might be a need where you need to help your family or a friend, and you need to know what to do. Just like I used to sit down and have to help my dad. He expected me to know because I went to school. Mm-hmm. And he said anybody out of school ought to know all of it. So if you don't know all of it, you need to know where to go get information. So you all have a great opportunity to know what your voice is, because in the future, you're going to have to know, get involved in something, you have to know the details of it. So you have a voice, but then you have an opportunity to have a vote. Some of you all are already at that age. If you're not at the age, you're going to be nearing that age. Mm-hmm. But we want you all to come together and understand that the love for one another is going to what helps all of us get to where we're going one day. In school or where you're going to make friends forever. You're going to come together and to do that. I take people on tours of Linnentown because I want people to understand what it was like living there and point certain things out to people, because it was made up of plumbers, electricians, carpenters, mechanics, hairdressers. It was made up of people in the community. There was the children. There was no time out for us. It was to go get me a switch, or I'm going to put a belt on you. We had to eat what was in front of us.
That's right.
And we had to say yes, ma'am, and no, ma'am, to everybody, all the adults in the community. They felt accountable for us. So we were brought up that way. But I just want you all to know that you have a great opportunity. You got a big learning institution here. Use it, because you never know when something might happen. You may have to go back to help somebody in your family or somebody in your community. Like people are calling now for us to help them in the community about situations. So I just want you all to know that. We don't want to come across as angry, but we are not angry. We're just trying to, you all to understand what can happen in your community, to your family or to your neighborhood or your neighbors, okay?
And I just want to say this. Out of Linnentown, our children, Hattie's, bodies, and minds, they are very prosperous. They did well. See, my daddy couldn't read at all. He taught himself to read by reading the Bible because they didn't go to school. See, my daddy come from Madison, Georgia. One night he heard that they didn't like my granddaddy, so one night one of his brothers heard that they was gonna hang him. And they walked all the way from Madison, Georgia to Athens. They saw how bad it was, so they went to Overthrow. Once they stayed there now a while, then they migrated back to Athens. That's how things was back then. Just imagine walking all night long with your 4 little boys, hiding every time you saw a street car light coming, which was very seldom, thank God, because they didn't have many cars. Just the white people had a car back then. Daddy told us the story. He said, I didn't have the opportunity to go to school. But he said, I'm going to send my kids, like Hattie said, and I'm going to teach myself. And he did. And I thank God for that. I'm proud of my dad. I'm proud of the people that lived in Linnentown. My mama, her mama. I used to eat at her house all the time. And it was good. She came down to my house, and nobody didn't say nothing. You just part of the family. Just sit down and eat. If you didn't, mama, first thing they said when you walk in the house, y'all come on here and eat.
Yes.
Didn't say who child you was or this, that, or another. We were so close. That's why it's instilling in us with love. Y'all got to think about this thing. Don't act up. Don't cut up. Think about it. You say, well, we got it. No, you don't. No, you don't. You're being controlled and don't even know it. Think for yourself. And do the right thing. We all come, this is a legend right here. He was to practice for pro. Was in an accident, blowed his ankle out. My son, Percy Eberhard Jr., graduated from right here. Oh, y'all know him.
I won book, Else Road.
Yeah. Okay, that's my baby, but he died playing basketball in college. That's all right. Everybody see God got us. Like God mean for us to be here to tell y'all about this. Come on now. Don't get antsy and wiggly. We fine. If y'all want to ask some questions, we ready.
We got 4 minutes, so go
Yeah,
ahead.
with the sake of time, we're gonna like let the audience ask questions. We're gonna hold our questions. So if y'all have questions, yeah,
My question.
yeah.
Yeah.
So for you, sir, I don't know your name. Do you mind repeating your name one time?
Joseph Carter.
So Mr. Carter, what makes you want to help them?
Amen. Tell him, Joe.
What gives you the drive to want to educate us and help the black people with their situation and their problem that happened to them years ago?
Because as a white man, I have a tremendous amount of power, and that's a problem.
Oh.
When I'm the one in this room who has probably some of the most power because of my political connections
Praise God.
and the way that I was raised with my wealth, that's a problem. And it's my duty, it's my obligation as a person to teach myself and to learn from others and how to share that power. And that's why I'm a labor organizer. But when I met the residents of Linnentown, I realized that I can use all of that experience and all of that power, actually help get those who have power to give it back to them. And that's my responsibility. And it comes with risks. There are things that I could lose.
Yes.
The University of Georgia even has me on a list. They're very aware of me. I almost lost my job.
You better not.
So, and this is not to give me credit in the sense of I'm doing something that I need to be seen for. It's to set an example to other people in my community, in white communities, to do the same. Take risks. Because the white students in this room, you have a tremendous amount of power. And it's our job to share it. So that's, and I've had to think long and hard, and I continue to have to think long and hard, and I deeply appreciate that question, because it reminds me of why I'm doing this, and the reasons that I need to do this. So I appreciate the question.
Amen.
Yeah.
What can we do and what can I do besides just remembering what Linnentown was and what it continues to be? Are there politicians we can call? Is there someone we can sign? But just besides remembering it, what can we do? What can I do?
You have
more likely that you guys get what you deserve.
You have a voice. Like I told you earlier, everybody has a voice. Just because you're not 18, you still have a voice.
Yeah, that's right.
So you can go back and see what councilman that's in your area, and you can email your councilman, or you could call your councilman, or you can talk to your parents who votes and to call, because you have a voice, and you can support that way. If you want to support more, we can maybe take your email address if it's okay with your parents, and because you have a voice. Everybody in this room has a voice.
That's right.
Like I told you, at 14, I was be involved, heavily involved in civil rights. So you have a voice, so, and then you have a vote if you're 18. So that's the way you can get involved. Thank you.
Are there any neighborhoods now being affected by gentrification by the university or just the Athens local government?
So the way that this works now is that the university either works with the city to swap land swaps, but for the most part, what the university does is that a lot of the developers who come in and who are especially targeting East Athens right now, the university has connections to all of the developers because they're creating student housing. So the increasing gentrification is encroaching on black communities along North Ave and in East Athens. And the university just, they once they see a piece of property, they'll work with the city either to make a deal to do a land swap, or they'll purchase the property. They'll make a bid on it.
What is a land swap for maybe?
So a land swap is where the local government owns a piece of property, and the University System of Georgia owns another piece of property. They estimate the values of each, and they will swap properties. In any difference between, there will be a cash difference. So, if a piece of if UGA owns a piece of property that's worth $100,000 and the city of Athens owns one that UGA wants that's about $90,000, they'll swap it, and the UGA will supply about $10,000 in cash or some other non-cashing grant aid is what it's usually called.
Unfortunately, that is our time. Let's give some hand praise to our panelists.